Hello, everyone. This is Ed Brenegar, and welcome to the Eddy Network podcast. My guest today is Rex Williams, an engineer at Boeing Company or Corporation. I guess it's corporation in Everett, Washington. Welcome, Rex. Glad to have you here.
Hey, thanks to be here, Ed. So excited to be on here, and thanks for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Rex and I have known each other for good 10, 15 years, and
Yeah.
he's a great guy. And you're a process engineer, which I like because when I tell people what kind of consultant are you, and I say a good one, and no, what kind of consultant are you? And I say I'm a process consultant. I'm good at
Uh,
solving problems. And in fact, my son, who's 37 now, when he was 10,
mhm.
was asked, "So what does your father do?" And he in my interview said, "Dad talks people into having problems and offers to fix them."
That's perfect.
Does that describe you?
Yeah. Go looking for problems that people don't know they have. Yeah, and then say yeah and fix them. That pretty much sums it up. Yeah.
How long have you been with Boeing?
Been 26 years. Yeah.
That's great. And have you
Yeah.
done this kind of work at Boeing the whole time, or did you start in one place and kind of move up through the ranks? And
Yes, I moved up and around. Yeah, I've been here, yeah, the whole time. But worked in lots of different groups and lots of different places in the Puget Sound area too. So I used to have to commute a long ways. Now I'm back where I'm close to where I live. Um, and just been in lots of different groups. I mean, you can have multiple careers within the company. I've had multiple dream jobs, I'll say, at the Boeing company, and it's just been awesome. Yeah, super fun. I love it.
what was the name of that program that you got me into, the webinar program that where I did the 4 webinars on the circle of impact? What was that?
Yeah, yeah. It's called the Ed Wells Partnership, and it's named after an iconic engineer in the early days of Boeing, Ed Wells, who was just a really well-rounded kind of engineer. And so this program is a joint partnership between the engineering union, SPIA, and Boeing. It's funded by the contract to provide unique training for engineers that they can't get anywhere else. And it's not like training for their job and stuff. It's like leadership, business skills, all kinds of interesting training or learning that's out there. And yeah, so I used to work for them. They have engineers come in and rotate for like a 2-year period. And that was one of my dream jobs. It was like, here's a bunch of money, figure out how to spend it. Like, all right, so it was like I was hiring consultants, developing programs, and doing all kinds of interesting things to bring knowledge and learning to the engineers. And so, yeah, that's what it was called. It's
It,
still
it was
going.
it was one of the most enjoyable projects that I ever got to do. So thanks for
Awesome.
being a part of the getting me in there. And
Yeah,
so
love it.
yeah. Well, you also have a Substack, and you've got a topic area which I find is really interesting. And so let's talk about that. What's your Substack called?
Uh, well, it's called Micromovements right now.
What does that mean?
Uh, well, what I like to talk about is it's what I've had experience in is how do you make some big changes happen in a large corporation? I think a lot of people in a corporation they feel stuck, like I can't do anything, my boss won't let me. If only they would do something, upper management or whatever. It's easy to blame the top because they make strategic decisions and it gets flowed down and you do what you're told kind of thing. But because it's so big, I've found that it's a lot more complicated or complex than just the big boss says something and everybody does it. You know, it's a culture. It's a big organization. And so what I found is there are a lot of people that have started things and implemented good ideas that are beneficial for the company. In fact, management wants you to do that. That they've started without necessarily asking permission, or it didn't come down from the top, because people at the top, they don't know everything. We think they do, but they don't. They know a lot of things and many things, and they're good at some things, but the knowledge of a corporation is spread throughout all the people in the corporation. So the people need to come up with the things that make the corporation better. So all that to say, you know, when you have an idea, a lot of times people think, well, I just need to get this to the top senior management, and for them to say, okay, everybody go do it, and then it'll do it.
Doesn't work
But
that way, does it?
yeah, no, they don't have as much power as you think. So my recommendation or experience to make things happen in a large corporation, you need a movement. You need people behind it, people that believe in it and they're talking about it and that are making things happen before you get approval. And when you have a large enough group or motivation or things happening around something, then you can say, hey, look, we've proved this idea over here. We've implemented it in some little pockets of the company. It's got all this community behind it. Then executives will take notice and like, oh, really? Wow, maybe I should pay attention. Maybe I will put some sponsorship behind it, and then help it out. So getting executive support is kind of really the last step in my little format or method, the movement method, you might want to call it, or something that I recommend to people, and that I'm trying to talk about in my Substack. I've just kind of got started, but there's all kinds of nuances and stuff. So
Well,
yeah,
let me
no,
ask you this question.
yeah,
It sounds like we're talking about two things here. On the one hand, there's creating a movement, which another way of talking about, you're birthing a movement to accomplish some change.
mm-hmm.
But already a culture there that exists. I mean, you know, you and I have talked about this, and you know, my definition of what that culture is, it's a persistent residual culture of values that persists because it resides in the relationships of the people. So that's where the culture is. How do you take that 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 set of relationships of people and move them from being kind of this culture that exists as the kind of the foundation of the company to being a movement which brings about change?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good point. And you know, I don't have the answer, but I totally believe, like, in the relationships, like you said, and it's one of my sayings that I say all the time, but people kind of laugh because I said everybody should know everybody. You know, like, you know, the more people that we know and have, you know, this kind of relationship with, the smoother things go. I mean, there's a lot of books about the speed of trust. That's a particular book,
Yeah,
where big business and deals are made with a handshake because they know
yeah,
they're going to make it happen, right?
right.
So what I found is, like, in a large corporation, you have a lot of forms and processes so that everybody does everything the same and it's documented and stuff. But, you know, if you know someone and your buddies or whatever, loose term, you just call them up and say, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do that? Yeah, let me just look that up. Let me do that. people do things for each other, and work flows, like stuff gets done without a form, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so I'm not saying like go around the process or anything, but I'm just saying things work a lot smoother when you know people. And I am kind of on a mission to introduce more people and to get more people to know people. It's kind of been one of my things since I've been here, involved in communities of practice, involved in a lot of stuff that's going on around the company that a lot of people don't know about. It's just kind of in this corner. And I say, hey, do you guys know that this thing's happening over here? Um,
I,
and
I
so, yeah,
I have a friend who is just like you in this regard. In his
yeah,
corporate, he's in a large global corporation,
yeah.
and um, he's the guy that everybody goes to because he knows everybody else.
I get that a lot.
He's a
Hey, I saw
networker.
your name on a thing. Hey, do you know this person? Oh yeah, I don't know the answer, but I know this person over here knows the answer. I mean, I love it. I love connecting people. I mean, yeah,
Well,
exactly.
there's there's a similarity in personality between the two of you.
Mm-hmm.
Probably should connect you two together. I think that's let's
Yeah.
do that
Yeah,
after.
let's do it.
Um, but I think that the real key is that for some of us, that networking is a personality trait,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be dependent upon being a personality trait. It's actually a skill that we develop,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
have to feel comfortable enough stepping out of our comfort zone and
Mm-hmm.
meet people that we want to meet. So,
Yeah.
how extensive is your network there at Boeing?
Well, it changes all the time, and I think I've done this exercise before. Like write down everybody and who knows who. It
No,
seems like,
let's look at the structure of the company.
yeah.
Okay, so you look at that org chart.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, in all those different divisions, all those different departments, all those different offices, how many of those could you call someone up in and say, hey Joe, hey Fran, hey Reggie, what's going on? Can I need your advice? Can you do that pretty extensively within the company?
I don't know. I'd say yes, but I've been here a long time, so you think I know more people, but what happens? People leave. So as I'm getting
Yeah.
later, all the people I knew have retired. So I have to you have to constantly be developing your network because you know fewer people when you've been here longer. There's some kind of peak, I think that but yeah, I keep trying. So I'm meeting more
I think
people.
it's a very important thing that you just said. I think people, we need to hear that as we grow older, as we grow through transitions in our lives, and some of those transitions are within our work. There are going to be people who are there and then they're gone, and new people show.
Hmm.
We can't depend
Yeah.
on the group that we grew up with to always be there, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to constantly be nurturing this thing. I mean, this whole
Yeah.
podcast thing for me is an experiment in networking. So I'm
Yeah.
meeting people that I would not meet otherwise, and it's a
Uh-huh.
thing. So
Yeah, it's so great. And that's one of the fun things too. I love like walking around the building and I'll just run into people that I knew from so many years ago. Oh, hey, how's it going? And sometimes I remember their names, sometimes I don't, but we worked on something and that happens less and less as people leave and stuff. But people that are still here, we go way back. So
so do you
um
do you become the person that people come to say, hey, who do I need to go to find out this?
yeah, in some context, yes, for sure. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I always try to provide value. I try to do that um we have an internal like social networking network, like an internal kind of Facebook thing that's like Boeing developed, but it has all the features of all the different things. And I'll comment, people will post things and then I'll comment and I'll try to connect people in the comments too. Like, oh, have you heard about this? Or though so and so knows this. And so that kind of helps me expand my network too.
So the people that structurally are above you, have they taken notice of this micro movements?
So what you're saying is, does my boss know about this? It's funny. Sorry. Um, so I've had many different managements over the years, right? And generally, uh, they don't, they're not in the same spaces. So they usually don't know about all the stuff that I'm involved in. I, and but I tell them, mostly.
Yeah,
Um, but eh, so in general they do, and a, a lot of a lot of people know me throughout the company, and sometimes that helps me, sometimes it doesn't. Uh, I don't know.
I think that's
It
true.
always helps. Yeah, but sometimes my direct chain of command doesn't really know all the stuff I'm involved in. I mean, it's funny. It's such a large corporation. Um,
How many employees there?
we're at somewhere around 150,000. Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
lot of people.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. So let's talk about change,
Hmm.
because I mean what you had communicated to me is that the micro movement is really about facilitating change. So
Hmm.
what is change in the context of a corporation? What does that look like?
Mm. Well, there's all kinds, right? And I think because there's so many processes and systems set up so that things work, that all the integration works, and we make some big, awesome products that take a lot of things to happen and parts to come together. That we have a lot of systems, and so people, when they want to change something, it really feels monumental, like not even possible. Because, and we say this all, there's like a big ship, you got it turns, the big ship turns slowly. You can't just turn the ship. But um, another great analogy of the ship is, what turns the ship?
The rudder.
And that's a little tiny rudder, right?
Right.
Uh, in relative size. So I believe people can make a difference. And that's why I use the term micro movements to say, hey, just start the smallest thing.
Yeah.
Just get a few friends together and start talking about your thing. That's how things get started. And there's that great quote that gets used all the time, Margaret Mead, the world, never underestimate the power of a small group of people to change the world.
In fact, that's always been the way it is.
Yeah, it's always been. Yeah. I totally butchered that. I have it posted somewhere. I should have it memorized, but I forgot. But anyway, so that's what I say to do. Don't go to management, ask for permission. Go to the people that will support you, that you believe um, will agree with your idea and whatnot, and start talking about um, something. Start planning something, um, and then start raising your hand. Is what I say. Is like, start talking about it at higher levels. And that's when you'll get the people that agree with your idea to say, hey, I like that idea. I'm going to come try to support that. Or I want to be a part of that. And that's when you start to build a movement. You're getting people um, that that will be part of it. So that's one of my steps is, first to like schedule a meeting. We do that already. We have meetings all the time. Everybody hates meetings, but you got to do it, because if you work with other people, you got to meet with them, right? So um, start planning something and then publish as prolifically, is what I say. Publish could mean lots of different things inside a corporation. Maybe it's a newsletter, or maybe it's somewhere where people can see it. Um, and then you start building a community, and then you involve them in the change and see what would they um, like to see change. And sometimes that means you have to pivot or morph your original idea that you thought was so great when you get people that help you, that have different perspectives. They say, hey, we got to change it. What about this part of, and morph it so that it's more viable or feasible or whatever. Then only when you have and you show success at little pockets and you're building the movement, then you can go to executives, or maybe they'll come to you because they've seen it. What's going on over here? And you say, yeah, we're doing this thing. We've proven that it has this kind of impact, and you want to support us. And then when they start talking to other executives, because executives are more likely to listen to a fellow executive than from someone else because they kind of speak the same language. They understand how to relate the story in their terms more, bottom line, money, productivity, whatever. Um, it is more valid. There's a, you know, validity kind of stamp on something. And so then when they're an advocate for you, you don't need to ask for money. I think we always say, hey, give me some budget so I can do this. Just say, hey, just talk about it, and maybe you could share it with some other executives in your executive meetings or whatever. And then when more are behind it, then we can say, well, we want to take it to this next level. Is there some funding available for this thing or something?
It it would sound like this would be extraordinarily helpful when at Boeing you stop building like the 747 and you're going to move into a whole new airframe that's totally different than what you were building. And you've got
Hmm.
these people who are working on that legacy product who are now
Hmm.
going to have to be reallocated and whatever that word is
Reassigned, yeah.
into the new one. That transition process is a change process that must be very, very challenging for everybody when that takes place.
Yeah. Yeah, right. There's different cultures that exist in different pockets.
Yeah.
Yeah, the manufacturing culture is totally different than the engineering culture. Um, and yeah, I think there's a lot of work that has to be done in communication and storytelling to get people to feel a part of something and to buy into doing something different. Um, it's funny, what's recently come up in my work is that I find, highly technical people solving these detailed problems that need to spread to everybody or a large population of engineers, say. Um, and how do they tell everyone, what this problem is and why you need to do stuff differently? There's a whole communication part, and there's no skill that does that. And like they think, it's like, oh, we'll just tell the manager, the executive to say, okay, everybody, you got to do it this way now. That doesn't work. Like, yeah, you think maybe kind of it might work or it should work, but then everybody's just like, well, it's boss, someone telling us we got to do this thing now. Okay, we're gonna do it. So they're just checking a box and they're not really into it. As soon as that boss leaves, they're not gonna do it, or for whatever reason, they're not gonna into it. So you really need to build the commitment and the heart and soul of people, why they need to change and do this, and that's a difficult job. I mean,
When when
but
I
it take.
began when I began as a consultant back in the mid '90s, one of the first things I was seeing patterns of behavior. And
Hmm.
one of those patterns was the inability to understand the structure of the business.
Mm.
not just understand it from a cognitive, rational sense, but actually understand how it influences how a person feels about themselves and their work.
Ah.
And it has this effect of in many places it has this effect of diminishing their sense of human agency, their ability to take initiative, their ability to raise their hand and say, I have an idea, because
Mm-hmm.
it's it's this pressure to perform and pressure to stay in your lane and pressure to
Yeah.
not disturb things, because every time you speak up, it's causing someone else. It's like the old butterfly effect,
Yeah.
fly, flies in Brazil and something happens in New York or something like. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think this is the real challenge that particularly hierarchical organizations have, which is
Yeah.
getting locked into a pattern of behavior where there's no room and there's no leverage for actually doing something different. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why I really like what you're doing, because it is small. It begins small. It's micro,
Yep.
and but it has an effect upon the person to the extent that all of a sudden the structure that they're working in is open to their initiative.
Mm.
That's a
Mm-hmm.
really cool thing. And I think and I think that the structure that supports that is the structure of networks.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why, exactly. That's why I've always been involved early on, in these communities of practice. Now, you've probably heard that term. What does that
Yeah,
mean? And it has different connotations in our company and maybe in other companies too. Um, but the idea is like people gathering around a particular subject that they're interested in. And what I find fascinating is like it doesn't matter what organization they're in. We have these lines of structure, these silos, but when you're gathered around something you're interested in, it doesn't matter. You're just coming from a different perspective.
right.
And it's great. And it's like what the internet has done for people, geography, doesn't matter where you live, you can be a part of something wherever.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. So, um, so we have all kinds of communities, and they always need more help. So, I always tell people, like new employees or people that are looking, um, for something to do or something, or networking or improving their position, getting involved. Every community could use someone helping it thrive, and bringing more information and talking about the subject and having events and meetups and different things like that. There's it didn't used to be when I started, but like now, I mean, there are job titles of community manager, um, and not so many in a corporation, because people think, well, what is that? What value is that? But I've been following Richard Millington for many years, and he, I think, is one of the best. Uh, and his site is feverbee.com, but he is all about communities, and he consults with companies on building their external communities for, product development or customer support or anything, or in internal communities too. He's scientific about it. It's so amazing, such good stuff. And I met him through Seth Godin too in the tribe. Yeah.
So
Did we talk about that? We didn't talk about.
we can talk about it. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, everything I think you have done and I've done in some way or another gets traced back to networks, and in many cases that started with Seth Godin.
Yeah, tribes. That book changed my life.
Yeah,
Uh, we need you to lead us. I mean, that I think it's published in 2008.
yeah.
Um, I had read a couple of Seth's books. I think Purple Cow. um, and Free Prize Inside. I remember
Yeah.
finding that book on it. Um,
Yeah,
and
I got one of the copies that came in a cereal box.
yeah, the one in the box. Yeah, I remember reading about that. I mean, I think I just saw it at a secondhand store, but
Yeah.
yeah. And But Tribes was pre-order this book and you can be a member of my community, of my tribe. And like, oh, that sounds interesting. So I did, and uh and that was one of the first kind of online communities. It was really early on before they started being big and common, with Facebook groups and stuff. It was way before that.
His grew to be about 16,000.
Was it that many?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it always felt like there was only about 400 or 500 that was involved.
Yeah,
People,
exactly.
people. This is about what we're doing here, having this conversation as a podcast. People would lurk. They would stand outside and watch what's going on. When what
Uh-huh.
they really should be doing is commenting. Like here, I want to hear people commenting on what you're talking about, particularly if you're working in a corporation and you have something similar like this going on in your place. Say something about that so Rex can know and I can know and other people can know too.
Mm-hmm.
This is a conversation. This is just in network theory, here are two poles to a relationship. The third pole is out here that has not been connected together, has not been bridged, and
Ah,
that's this is Ron Burt's um, uh, structural holes theory of
uh-huh.
uh, and social capital. But
Hmm.
so when you comment, where you're saying I'm listening and I'm engaged in what you all are talking about, and I want to be a part of that conversation. And,
Hmm.
and what I have found, Rex, and maybe you'll find it with your Substack, is that I have found people through the comments who I'm now interviewing for my
Oh yeah.
so, so this is not entertainment. This is engagement in change that's taking place in the world right now. And this whole idea of networks, and I just released a background video on networks. I think is really important for you to grasp hold of this. This is what
Yeah.
Micromovements is about. It's about building those networks within a corporation.
Hmm.
I think it has an application outside of a business to a
For
community.
sure. For sure.
So if
Yeah.
you were to say, if someone would came up to you and say, "I like this idea. What should I do? What's the first thing I should do?" What would you?
Mm. Yeah. Um, I would say if you have an idea or a concept or some kind of change, something that you would like your corporation to embrace or do, or some kind of change. Um, yeah, I would say get some other people. I mean, your best friend, whoever you think would listen, and have a small meeting with them, a strategy. And I'm talking, 3 to 5 people, it doesn't have to be a big group. It should be very small.
I agree.
And say, hey, what do you think about this? Like, I'd like to really make this happen. Um, and you want your optimists, and you don't want people to say, that'll never work. You're gonna get feedback, and you want feedback and
Yeah,
whatnot, but and plan out um what you might do. What small steps could you do to make this idea visible to your corporation, to other people? It doesn't even have to be the top or anything. You could schedule a big meeting. Now, we have lunch and learns. I don't know if that's a common term. We used to be a brown bag. Come to the brown bag. I guess it came from, bring your lunch in a brown bag. And it's like so
Bring it
old
to school
school.
in a brown bag. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. It's just not too long ago. There was a guy that brought his lunch in like a brown paper bag. I'm like, whoa, you actually have one? Yeah, man, sustainability, man. It's like recyclable and stuff. It's like, I was like, awesome.
I love
It's
that.
like, yeah, only in Seattle. No, it's yeah, no, it's
Not even a plastic bag.
no, it was a brown paper bag. He had his lunch in it, and I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Brown bag. So, anyways, we used to call these lunches like where you would like learn something. Like someone would give a presentation on some kind of concept, I don't know, like any kind of book, business book and stuff. You could do a presentation on. In fact, we have book clubs too. People do book clubs where they just present, overview of the book, and maybe it'll be one time, or you could like organize, we're going to meet 3 different times, read this section and this section, and we'll talk about it. Book clubs, whatever. So whatever your idea is, you could schedule a meeting and say, hey, we're going to talk about this, come during lunch and we'll talk about it, and then you'll get people to come and, oh, you came, you get their email, then you can have an email list, or you can have a space where they, hey, if you're interested in more, sign up here. Um, I'm assuming like most companies have some kind of an internal social network. I mean, I think there's Facebook, corporate, or Yammer, there's a
Yeah.
bunch of them out there. Slack, right? Everybody's on
Yeah.
Slack or
Yeah.
whatever. Use those things to to get noticed, kind of to get to publish, and then publish your thoughts around it and the benefits and whatever else, just like any blog post or newsletter.
Am I remembering correctly that you did an internal podcast there?
Yes, yes. So, still doing it. And yeah, it's called the Movement Maker Show. So me and a buddy, he said, we should do a video podcast. It's like, okay, let's do it. He loved video. We like talking about ideas and stuff. And then we said we should call it a show, so then it makes it more kind of, I don't know, entertaining, something totally different in a technical corporation. And then we kind of said maker because we kind of connect into like the maker community kind of stuff. I don't know. But we really just started interviewing our friends that were doing interesting things. And so it's really, people who are starting things without asking permission, you know, uh, because you think in a corporation, there's all kinds of initiatives and things, and you see these different things that are happening that are, sponsored and has this stuff, but they started somewhere. They didn't used to exist. Somebody had an idea and was able to set up this whole thing of how, this is how we do things. And it's not always the executive, right? It's someone else, and then the executive bought into it. So,
Maybe put their
uh,
rubber stamp on.
yeah. So, anyways, our podcast is, we're highlighting the bright spots. I mean, this is one of Chip and Dan Heath's things in Switch. Find out, share what's going on, the positive things, and it's a huge company, so there's a lot of things going on that people don't know about. So we're trying to we try to give some visibility for these things that people, are starting or they're doing. And
You,
it's awesome. Yeah,
and
it's super fun.
I think that one of the benefits in doing that is
Hmm.
every large corporation has its detractors, people who stand on the outside looking in and talking about that company as if it's evil or something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
But when you walk inside the company, you go inside the company, what you find are people like you, people who
Just
love the
people.
company, who want to make it better than it is, and that message, um, that message communicated by the people of the company
Hmm.
becomes a very powerful force in counteracting the negativity that exists in the marketplace or in the media, which all
Yeah.
has some kind of use for leveraging another entity against the company.
Hmm.
And that's the
Oh yeah.
dynamics of the world that we live in. I mean, this goes back to what I was saying early, that the culture, and I saw this in my work with you all at Boeing, that there's this persistent residual culture of values. And those value at the heart of those values are, we love this company. You all
Hmm.
love Boeing.
Yeah,
And
totally.
and that love persists because it resides in the relationships you have with each other.
Hmm.
And and therefore, I take all the negativity that comes with your company, and I just discount it, because
Hmm.
I know the people inside of it. And so that's how I look to it, and say, that's who Boeing is, and those are great people, and they're doing great work, and I am happy. You'll love this.
Appreciate that.
This is this is probably 6 years ago,
Hmm.
5 or 6 years ago, and I got on a plane in, where was I? I was flying to St. Louis, and I got on
Hmm.
Salt Lake City, and the guy next to me sitting was a McDonnell Douglas test pilot.
Oh, okay.
He tests. I think he would test fly military aircraft.
Yeah.
And I'm always asking um, hard, insulting, not insulting, but
Difficult questions.
challenging questions. I said,
Yeah.
are there any airlines that you would never fly on? Not airlines, any airplanes that you would never fly on?
Oh.
And he says, I will only fly on American, European, and Brazilian airplanes. All the others haven't had enough time to learn from their mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
Says,
Interesting.
we have been at this so long, we've had
It's a
so
long.
many mistakes, and we have learned from those mistakes. And so I'm absolutely confident to get on a Boeing or a Embraer, or what's the European the
Well, there's Airbus.
Airbus. I'm happy. I have no fear of getting on those. Any of these other any other nations that have airplane manufacturing, I'm not getting on those.
Mm, yeah. Oh
That
yeah. It's a long cycle industry for
Australia.
sure. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
And
that's a lesson that every corporation should incorporate as a positive thing for their company. We're going to learn from our mistakes, so go
yeah.
ahead and make mistakes, because we're going to be better because of it. Go try.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're definitely experiencing another cycle of learning and whatnot. And back to what you're saying, like the people of the company, we know more than anyone else all the problems that the company has, and the issues. And it's also easy inside to complain about management or executives and making poor decisions, and man, this company's going in the tank, and all that stuff. You get that. But I don't know, maybe it's because this time I'm an optimist. I think there's hope. There's there's good things happening. And so I try to say, hey, let's let's make it happen ourselves. Let's not like wait for something else to happen. Let's take initiative and, you know, be the change you want to happen in the world. There's no
Right.
they. We
Right.
are they, like let's make something happen. And because we love the company, we love the products, what it stands for, and the values. And so yeah, it is a battle. But I think that's why it's fun or a challenge to be in a corporation, because it's really a smaller pond. It's an enclosed system versus kind of out in the world, you know, marketing out in the world and trying to do something, like an entrepreneur, which I love too. Uh, but it's kind of this interesting challenge of silos and hierarchy that you have to navigate around, but that you can really make a difference. Uh, if you're able to start a movement, and you get people behind you. So
well,
it's fun.
I think what you have to say is really true. I think it's worth listening to. I think people should go find your micro
Yeah.
Substack and subscribe to it. And what's your videos Substack?
Oh, Rex on the Road,
Excellent.
rexontheroad.com. Yeah, so I a while ago when I had a long commute, I used to record videos during my commute to pass the time and things that I've learned maybe that day or something. And
Yeah,
so I've
I like
started
that.
doing that. Yeah, yeah, it's really fun. And I also have another podcast by a buddy called Distracted Driving. And you can go distracteddrivingpodcast.com. It has nothing to do with driving, but it's more about, don't get distracted when you're driving towards your goals or some kind of initiative or something. And so he's not it's outside of Boeing. He's got his own thing going on, and we interview, people that we know outside. So maybe we'll have you on the show, Ed. That'd be
That'd
great.
be great. We'll
Yeah.
have all of this in the show notes so that you can.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you came on today. This has been fun, and always
Yeah.
appreciate
Thanks for having me.
out with you. And I have a sense we'll be back on together at some point in the future. And I look forward to it.
Somehow. Yes. Thanks so much. Yeah. Great pleasure to be here on your podcast and share some thoughts. So
Thank you.
thank you.
And everyone, subscribe, like, and comment so that we can know that you watched and enjoyed this and found something worth commenting on. And look forward to seeing you again real soon. Bye-bye.